Today's guest is Elliot Wise, a multiple business owner with over 9 separate companies, a HMO portfolio mainly focused around student accommodation, and also a lovely luxury car collection. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, drop a comment below, and share this with a friend. Let's get to it. So, Elliot, thanks for coming on.
You're very welcome.
You bought a Ferrari in a pandemic.
Yeah.
How's it feel? It's quite an achievement, right?
So yeah, for me, cars were always. I'm quite frugal with my money. However, for me, cars have always been something I've always rewarded myself with. When it's like a tap on the back, basically. Yeah. So for me, every time I've kind of crossed a milestone in business, I've always bought myself a nice car. It's not an investment by any means, and like my opinion on nice things are, if you're hell bent on investing, someone like Warren Buffett, he would say, look, every penny you've got, invest for the future. But I'm very much of that camp. But I also think if I spend my entire life investing, and it's a little bit morbid, like tomorrow's never promised. I always think, well, I'd rather spread my utility, have a little bit less in the future, and enjoy every day. And also, for me, it's a nice thing. I look out the window, I get in the car, I go for a drive, and it just reminds me why I do it. And it's a little bit materialistic, shoot me, but it's a nice thing. And like, if that's the only enjoyment I have, I don't go out much. I work 7 days a week. I don't go out like partying, drinking, like take drugs, don't any of that rubbish. So I just have a nice car.
Yeah, no, I rate that. Yeah, I rate that.
Everything else is investment. Everything else. But for me, that's my little...
Yeah, no, it's a lovely car, I must say.
And don't get me wrong, as bad as it is, I'm very much now in the public eye. I try and promote my service and this, that and the other. Image is important. I don't give a damn what anyone says. If I was to rock around in a very cheap car and I'm trying to sell services, although the service I offer is very good, I actually back up what I do, and all my mentees and everyone, and my people that I do websites for, marketing for, importing for, whatever, they all get a very good service. Yeah. If I was to turn up to business meetings in a banger, they would judge me.
Yeah, it's a certain image.
So. And quickly to go on to that as well, I started in business very, very young. I had a retail company that was doing very well by the time I was 18. Mm-hmm. And I was rocking up to wholesalers, like suppliers of products, and saying, I want $100,000 account on a 60-day basis. So I'd get $100,000 worth of goods and I'd pay you back after 60 days. I'm an 18-year-old kid, and they're going, you're younger than my son. If I was to turn up looking like I was poor or wasn't successful, they would just laugh me out of the building, no matter how convincing I was, until I built up my reputation. I realised that my image was important. So go back to your original point, that's kind of where the car thing came from. So
and it's opened up doors and helped you to create that image around it. No, very interesting. Whilst we're there and we're talking about the beginning, from watching some of your content, some of your videos, obviously I know that you started out by building websites. Mm-hmm. Why was it websites? Why wasn't it any other kind of company?
It was actually a conversation with my dad. And he's a businessman. Like, no disrespect to him, he's very risk averse. So he's got a small little manufacturing company, but he's quite entrepreneurial in the sense that he could see the future but never really acted on it. Mm-hmm. And we used to have a lot of discussions from when I was about 4 years old. We used to design flip phones before they came out, things like that. And it was one of those things we were talking, and he said, we thought that websites are where it's going to be. And we thought the internet was just coming around then. I think that's what I had, Windows 95. Like, everyone was like, what do you do with the internet? Everyone thought it was a fad. And I was like, no, actually, there's premise here in terms of, okay, we thought initially it was going to be like product catalogs and things like that. We didn't really know too much about the e-commerce side of things, but companies wanted to show off their wares, their products, and this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, this could be big. And we had a chat about it. And to be honest, I just listened. That's one thing I've always done, is I've taken on more experienced people's advice, and I'll test it. Yeah. And for me, I saw promise in that. And I thought, you know what? I'll start getting into it. I'll have a little look. I was a massive geek anyway, so it wasn't any hardship. I used to just sit on my computer anyway. Yeah, so my AOL dial-up, for those of you that my age that would know what that is. I do know that, before we used to have like constant internet, you used to have to use the phone line. Your mum would shout at you because you're trying to go on the phone and you were taking the internet. And I'd build little websites. And to be honest, my first website I built was a Warhammer website.
Brilliant.
For myself.
Yeah.
Warhammer 40k, and then from there I built a little local company's website, the company my dad knew, and I think I sold that for about £350, and the rest was history really. That was about 13.
So if you're starting from zero today, so if someone's watching this, they're brand new, no experience, and they know they've got a burning desire to start a business, they've got the hunger for it, but they just don't know what to start. If you were starting from zero in 2021, where's your head go?
Instantly to what I enjoy, what I'm good at, regardless of what that is. Pretty much whatever you put your mind to now can be monetized via the internet. So if you wanted to sell how to dribble a basketball, I guarantee from my marketing perspective, I could probably teach people. There'll be a demand for that. Yeah. There'll be anything that you could possibly be very good at, you can turn into some form of monetization. You can sell it now.
Yeah.
And there won't be people working on a production line anymore in 5-10 years time. I work for a company now called Watson Gym Equipment. They're pretty much replacing all their staff with robots. And this is not, they're a big company, but they're a small company by big standards. They're not like a Tesla. They're a relatively small company by company standards, and they're already replacing people with robots. So, okay. And people now are shocked when people are making a hell of a lot of money on like OnlyFans and on online.
Yeah.
Everything's shifted. So my point being here is I would pick something that I loved and enjoyed. And then I would find a way eventually to monetize that. So if you're interested, like you say, properties, if you're interested in any gadgets or anything, there's Twitch now if you're a gamer. There's literally any way of making money. So more than anything, you need to be good at something. You can't sell something you're not good at.
So you need to have a skill.
So work on your attributes and what you're good at. That's ultimately what I would focus on. So for example, I've got relatively good social skills. I would do something, for me, it would always be some form of communication or something along those lines. Now, you can teach people how to talk to people. There's confidence classes. There's literally anything you could turn into a service. So now you've got to think outside the box and just think there's limitless opportunities to make money. So I would focus on something that I was good at, and then ultimately then find someone like a mentor that's already in that space, that's already doing well. And if there isn't a business there, find a way to make one. There's always ways of monetizing.
There's a gap in the market,
Yeah, if you're starting out, start with something you're good at. Stop trying to be something because someone else is. There's so many opportunities now. And because of the fact that we're kind of at the early brink of we're very much at the early stages of the internet. In 100 years' time, it's going to be completely different. Everything will be saturated. Yeah. Anyone that's complaining now that it's saturated is just chatting rubbish. It'll be those people that 100 years' time going, I wish I was born into like the year 2000 because there were so many opportunities. And we're at that stage now. Anything that you think of, you can do.
I honestly feel like that. 2021 is one of the biggest years for opportunity. Anyone that's not getting on board now is missing out. I built everything, not everything, I haven't got that much, but I built what I have from property and talking about property just because I physically love it. Mm-hmm. So you're sort of saying if someone had a passion for something, if someone had a skill for something, follow that because that will keep you doing it day after day after day, and they should be able to build and monetize around that.
I think what I'm trying to say is the infrastructure is there now to monetize on whatever it is that you want to do.
Okay.
That wasn't like that 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
It's different now. The infrastructure is there. So whatever it is that you're good at, and like I said, don't try and sell something you're crap at. Excuse my French, try and sell something that you're good at and then typically you enjoy. So they're the two prerequisites, really. And if I was starting out in business, those are the things I'd focus on, not the money side. There's lots of clever people out there, even if you don't know how to monetize, that you could get to help you monetize. And someone like myself, for example, that's what I do. I help people monetize their services and whatever they're trying to
So they've just got to, obviously have the skill, and then they could go to an expert.
I'll tell you a really quick story because I don't want to go over. But one of my best mates, he's a steel erector, and he's a very bright guy. I went to college with him, and he's a very academic, bright guy, and he loves writing. And I said to him the other day, I was like, "Can you do me some copywriting for some of my business's blogs and stuff like that?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, he wrote some stuff. I was like, "This is really good." I was like, "Have you ever thought about any profession?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You can make a lot of money copywriting. For example, ad copy, landing page copy. Yeah. If I can go into a business and I can take someone's advertising funnel and I can increase their return on ad spend, a big company spend millions that can then earn more will pay you thousands a day to write good copy." Yeah. And he did a Google. He was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how much people get made copywriting." And then all of a sudden, so I'm actually having a meeting with him tonight about how he can start monetizing that. I was like, I can, and that was literally just from a quick conversation. He was like, well, yeah, you can. He just didn't know.
He could completely
because he's been out of the digital side. He's still thinking he's a steel erector. I was like, the world is different now. And now he's very excited because I've just told him a few things, and that's that kind of an example to show what I'm talking about.
No, I think that's very relevant for anyone watching that's brand new, because I think that's what a large majority, certainly of my audience, are. That they might have 1 or 2 properties, or they might, be very big, beginning stages of their property or business stage, and that's where a lot of people get stuck because they're like, I don't know what to start monetizing, or I don't know how to start making a business. But going back to you for a minute, after the websites, building the websites, making a business out of that, I believe you met someone and formed some sort of relationship where you're able to open your electrical store.
That's correct.
Build it up to, to open a warehouse, have staff. Then it went slightly downhill.
You've done your due diligence.
Are you able to delve into that and maybe the learning experiences from that?
There's some legal issues going around that, so I can't go into too many details, but I can give you the overview.
Yeah.
So there was just my business partner at the time wasn't intentionally spiteful. I think what the issue was and something that I can give some advice on here, is if you're going to go into business with someone, my best advice is don't go into business with someone that's struggling for money. The reason being is especially when you start a new business, as you well know, it requires a hell of a lot of time, resources and money without anything back in return, typically. There's a few rare cases where that doesn't happen, but the majority of cases you have to put time, money and investment in. And if you're taking that away from the business, you're suffocating it. It needs fuel, it needs oxygen. Take Elon Musk, for example. He put all of his PayPal money into Tesla and SpaceX to get it going. He still nearly failed. It's like 180 million, I think it was.
That's crazy.
Right? It was just the wrong business partner at the wrong time. It went sour, things went wrong, things happened that shouldn't have happened. Loans were taken out that shouldn't have been taken out. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but probably the best lesson I've ever paid for, and I'll say that again, I spent a lot of money going to university, and it taught me very little about how to make money or do well in business. That one lesson cost me tens of thousands of pounds a month, nearly lost me everything. However, I'm now wealthier for it.
Interesting. I think there's so much to be learned from, even if something doesn't necessarily fail or go wrong necessarily, but even if it just doesn't get off the ground, you take those experiences into the next project.
So my advice would be you're always going to fail, you're always going to mess up.
Yeah.
If you can listen to me and avoid those problems by listening to other people that failed, that's great.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to accept you're going to make your own failures, and a failure isn't a loss. It's not a defeat. It's a learning experience. I know it's a really cliche thing to say, but it's so true.
I agree. Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You just got to look at it the right way. And I was very bitter for about a year, and that didn't do me any good. But now I look back at it and I'm like, well, I just paid for an experience that taught me a lot of how not to do things in the future and avoid me potentially. If this was a different situation, I had a company now that was worth millions to me a year, and the same thing happened, that'd be a damn sight worse.
Yeah.
So it happened to me early on. I think I was about 24, 25. Possibly a bit younger, and it's now it was a learning experience, which has now made me diversify, got into more businesses, be more fruitful, be more risk protected against risk, and I'm better for it, which is probably why I survived the pandemic, because I wasn't reliant on one business.
Yeah, one source of income. Business. You said you were a bit bitter following it, understandably. How did you get back on your feet?
Well, after wallowing in self-pity for a couple of weeks, I realised that that's not productive. I'm a very driven person. And to be honest, I pulled myself out of it. It was more of I need to get my bits together and get crack back on. And I used it as massive motivation. I had a house, but I actually moved back in with my mum. Because I wanted to go back to feeling like I did when I was starting everything from scratch, and feel like I had nothing and I had my back against the wall. And I've never been so productive. In 1 year, I started up 2 new businesses and was earning more money by the end of that year than I was before that mess up. And since then, it snowballed. And what I realised was since then is when things go south and things go wrong, like the pandemic, or your business might go tits up, or you might lose a property, or tenants might not, whatever might happen. The quicker you can get over the fact that things have gone wrong and you can get productive again, the faster you might start making money.
It's valuable. Yeah.
You got to be very quick to get over it as fast as you possibly can. So that's where the emotional side has to be taken out.
Yeah.
A robot wouldn't sit there dwelling on it and be like, right, what can I do now?
Yeah.
So you've got to be robotic with it. Yes, it's going to hurt. It's sometimes a real kick in the nuts, right?
Yeah.
But and since then I'm like, right, every time something happens, like the first lockdown, it hit me quite hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, I've got to get over this really quick. The faster I can get over it, the quicker I can get back to making money, the quicker I can get back on it.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very
yeah.
easy thing to say, very hard to do
Yeah.
in practice. But yeah, it was a massive learning experience for me. And like I said, I've taken a lot from it.
No, that's amazing to hear. I think there's a lesson in that. I think there's the fact that, in a way, quite obviously there, knowledge as well from coming out of that experience. Knowledge is more powerful than capital and business partners sometimes. It's the learning experiences you've had because you managed to get back much quicker. You managed to build more businesses. And as you've just said, you diversify now. So how many businesses is it that you own? And are they in lots of different industries because of that?
I'm in about 9 different industries.
Yep.
Whether or not I'm involved, I own the businesses or I'm managing them or whatever. I have income sources from 9 different industries.
Amazing.
Completely different. I've got import companies. I've got a team in China. I'm involved in fitness, supplementation, aesthetics, real estate, e-commerce, marketing, consultancy. So there's lots of different things and lots of pies. And I think a big part of it is I love to learn. I could be, going back to that saying diversification and everything else, I think it's important, but I could be a lot more wealthy if I just focus on one thing.
Yes.
Or 2 big businesses.
Yeah.
But for me, I love to learn. So for me, I know that that's a detriment to my total success. I could have, for example, if I was trying to have like a Microsoft company, right? Yeah. I would be a billionaire. Don't think any of my companies realistically will ever become billion-dollar companies. One might. I've got an idea for one that might. There's only one that I've got actually in my head that I've started, but in essence, I don't think any of them will ever get to become like that status, but I could do very well from all of them. And plus I love to learn. I love learning. So for me, I do things I enjoy, like I just advise other people to do. And I love business and I love starting new things. So I get a buzz off of that. And ultimately, if it gets me out of bed every day and I'm happy to do what I'm doing, then I'll carry on. If I don't get out of bed every day and I'm not looking forward to it, I'll change it.
And there's an expression you've coined, which I now use as well.
Okay.
The hybrid entrepreneur.
Yes.
Is that what that is, basically? It's just someone that can turn their hand to multiple industries, multiple businesses.
Yep. There's an extra element to that as well, and that comes to the social side of things as well. You have to look like an entrepreneur at the same time.
Yeah.
As you and I were just discussing before on camera.
Yeah.
I realised quite recently, well, about 2 years ago, that it was all well and good me being a successful businessman, but if I wanted longevity in this space, I had to be seen to be a successful entrepreneur. I had to be able to have a following because that safeguards me to an element because I then can monetize my experience and knowledge, whatever it is I'm getting into.
Yes.
So hybrid entrepreneur is being a good entrepreneur, but then also looking like one as well. Keeping up appearances, being constant with media. That's why I now hire a full-time videographer, as you do. Like, you have to have that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell older entrepreneurs the same thing. They don't really get it. But I'm like, if you want to, because we're still young in the game.
We are, yeah.
We could be in business for another 50 years, like, quite easily. It's that in mind, we need to keep up with the Joneses. We need to keep ahead and realize, and that's what I'm very good at is looking at trends. So where are things going? So that's another thing, guys. If you are interested in business, great things to get into, copywriting, because more businesses are going to get more competitive online for ad spend, videographers, photographers, content producers, all those kind of things will start being replaced because the people coming off the production lines and those kind of jobs will increase in demand.
Interesting.
So that's the kind of things I would be looking at as trends. So actually, in addition to what you said earlier about what it is that you should be getting into, I'm always looking ahead. What's going to be demanded in 10, 20, 30 years' time? That's why I looked at websites back in the day.
Yeah.
Because I knew that's where it was going. It's a risk. It might not have done. The internet might have been a bubble. It might have been a fad. But I called it right.
Yeah.
You only have to call it right once.
Yeah, true.
You can be wrong a lot.
Yeah. And you could try multiple different things, but effectively, I guess it's a calculated risk. But it's quite obvious that, for example, 2 years ago, probably even, it was quite obvious that YouTube was going to continue growing. If you take YouTube as a platform, if you take social media as one of those, something that you could bet on in terms of trends, you could see that the monetization side of it was becoming more and more popular, more people joining it. Going back to your businesses, before we move on from that bit, I'm quite interested to talk numbers at an overview level. Obviously, don't want to go too personal with you, but when you talk about owning, or having part of 9 businesses or so, are you able to say, are they doing hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands a month? A
lot of the retail, in terms of revenues, some of pretty much all the e-commerce business I'm involved in are millions a year. The service-based ones are tens of thousands a month. So dealing in big numbers.
Yeah,
I mean, my advertising spends thousands of pounds a day, to put that in perspective, across the board. So it didn't used to be like that. And like I say, it doesn't. For me, numbers don't really mean anything. It's a good metric, but in terms of, for me, I'm always looking at longevity and whether or not it's going to continue. That for me is the most important part. Like it's all well and good being wealthy now and things going well. I'm like, is this going to continue? Is this growing? Is this going the right way? Am I future proofed? So yeah, property wise, not huge by any means, but that's tens of thousands a month in terms of rental income.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty decent.
Doing all right.
Yeah, doing all right.
Good. And obviously wanting to give some sort of take home from everything that you bring to the table in terms of, the business mindset and those that you've launched. If someone was brand new, and we've discussed how they might be able to find a skill or something to base their company around, if they've launched and they're like, maybe they're building up their socials and they're getting their first few clients and they've kind of discovered that they've got a working business model, how do they scale that? If you were starting a business, how do you then launch and scale that to the next level? What are
Quickest
your
way,
tools?
number one, reach out and find people that are already doing it well.
Yeah.
Number one. So this is the biggest mistake I made in business. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a mentor. Like I'll be open to say this, like obviously I tell people to do that because I offer it as a service.
Yeah,
There's a reason I offer it as a service, because it works.
Yeah.
The first thing I did was I realized that if I was going to get involved in real estate, that's what I did. I started reaching out to people that knew about real estate.
Yeah.
I got involved in business in terms of, like I told you about delegation earlier. I started speaking to people that are worth hundreds of millions, and I started asking them how they hired people, how they got teams. I've got a very good friend now in London who runs a HR company. I asked him about how to employ people. So I go straight to the source. I find very good people in the industry. So for example, if you started up a business on copyright, real estate, this, that and the other, reach out to people. If I was getting involved in buy-to-let, I'd talk to you.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily you don't necessarily have to pay for it. Some people will just help you.
Yeah.
Or intern get a part-time job with these people. And almost to a point at which, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say this the other day, he said, to the point at which you almost stalk the people. Yeah. Try and get as much out of them as you possibly can. But don't necessarily mean that you just have to take value from them. See if you can offer them anything in return.
Yep.
Can I help you out? Can I do something for you? For example, if they wanted some advice from you, could I do a bit of videography for you? Could I help you with your website? This, that, and the other. If you can offer something in exchange for some knowledge. Yeah. Number one. Secondly, we talked about it a second ago with you behind camera, advertising. Once you've figured out a system that works organically, and this is the biggest mistake people make when they in my opinion, my humble opinion, when they run marketing ads, is they don't have a system that works already. And I think just because I throw money at it, I'll start making money. Work out something that works without putting any money behind it, get it working, get money coming in, and then put money behind it. And that scale as fast as possible. I didn't get advertising early enough at a big enough scale. I was very tentative. I wasn't quite sure. But if you're putting money in, if you're putting £1 in and £3 comes out, you'd be a moron not to put as many pounds in as you possibly could. Yeah. And I don't know why people can't get that. I don't know whether they're not tracking things properly or they're just scared or what it's new to them. Yeah. But if you're trying to scale, I'd only ever try and scale if something's working. So we're assuming here that you're doing something that's going okay. For example, you've got a great business going on. Yep. You're growing. If I were you, I would start going, right, okay, I'm going to start trying to ramp this up now. Yep. I'll put money into it. So 2 things here. Find people that really know what they're talking about in the area you're trying to grow in. Yeah. Get their advice, do whatever you can, pay them if you need to, or give them help or whatever. Try and source that information. Secondly, put money behind it and scale it. Yeah. Advertising right now is still very cheap. Although people don't think it is. In 50 years' time, you will not be able to afford it. There won't be Facebook ads, there won't be Google ads that are affordable for small businesses. You have to be the Amazons of the world, the eBays of the world, the Nikes, this, that and the other, because they're the only ones who'll be able to afford it.
They'll just completely dominate and take control with the...
This is why we can't afford TV ads now or radio ads and things like that, because it got saturated. Initially, early on, you probably could have bought a TV ad for nothing. Right? Yeah. And the early adopters, which we still are, people don't get this in their head. We're still the early adopters. Yeah. It's still super cheap to get influencers. It's still super cheap to get Facebook ads, this, that, and the other. It's underpriced.
So it goes back to underpriced attention thing.
Massively. Yeah. So that for me right now, if I was trying to scale quickly, I had a business, I figured out what I was doing, it was going okay, and I wanted to go as fast as possible. Yeah. Get good advice, put money behind it.
Okay, good. That's it's really valuable. I kind of feel like by being here in your presence that I've done number 1. And now I've got to move on to number 2. So,
like I say, drop me a message if you want help. would advise I'm have inundated with people now asking me help with their ads, but literally reach out to someone like me, say, is this all right? Is this working okay? And I'll give you some advice. It's not like, a lot of people are quite helpful. When you reach out to them, there's a lot of people out there's some arseholes. Okay, find someone else. There's a lot of people doing things that you're trying to do. Just reach out and see what you can get out of them.
Yeah, I'll second that. I'll definitely second that. And one thing that we haven't covered is obviously, because maybe it's obvious, cash is the bloodline of like any business. Without it, where'd you go? So, but once someone has grown, businesses like you, and for example, you've got multiple businesses, you're making cash, and once you can actually take that cash out because you're making enough of it, and you don't have to reinvest some of it. Obviously, you've discussed that you buy lovely cars, and you've briefly touched on the fact there that you've also bought some houses, some HMOs. Are you able to go into them a bit more and why you did it? And
so for me, property was all about, well, for one, I wanted to learn it. Number one, that's why I went through it. I don't ever get into stuff that I'm interested in. Secondly, I had a goal. After my big loss or my big hit with my ex-business partner, my company was doing very, very well, that I lost. I was hell-bent on, I said to myself, I want to get enough property that will provide enough profit that will cover all of my overheads. That was my goal.
Yeah.
So basically, if I didn't get out of bed, I want, like, with my house, my cars, everything included, my whatever holidays I have, whatever expenses I have per year.
Yeah.
My goal was basically to have a blanket there, because it's almost passive. It's not quite passive. I still have to handle people. But for me, relative to my other jobs, it's very passive.
Yes.
I made like focus on my properties a couple of hours a month, whereas I'm doing like tens of hours a day, 7 days a week from other businesses. That's passive to me.
Yeah.
If I can do that, it was like a massive safety blanket for me, so that if I lost my businesses again, which I always had I always have that now, that they can be lost, I could literally get out of bed in the morning and not worry about covering my bills. I could still have my Ferrari, still have my G-Wagon, this, that and the other. I could still have my house, pay my rent, pay for my family, make sure my son's got enough, like what he needs. And that was my goal. I hit that about 2 years ago.
That's amazing.
So since then, I actually haven't been hell-bent on increasing my property portfolio, because I said, you want to get to development.
Yes.
But that's why I kept accumulating properties until I got to that point.
Yeah.
Where, because my actual overheads, other than obviously staffing this, that and the other, that's a variable cost, but my actual fixed costs for my life outside of business are very low. Although they may not look like it, I put a lot of money down on my house. I don't have a lot of car payments. I bought a lot of it outright, so I actually don't have a lot of expenses, and I don't have an extravagant lifestyle by any means. You can ask Jake, my videographer. I don't do anything outside of work, so I don't spend a lot on clothes. Or I have nice suits and that's the other. Other than that, that's it.
Yeah, with you there. Yeah.
So the properties for me were, I want to get enough properties, so HMOs, non-licensed and licensed, to be able to cover that. That was my goal.
And so you're technically financially free.
Yes,
is the term they love to throw around. So
exactly.
no, that's incredible. Yeah, no, and is that like professional or student HMOs? Or?
It's a student.
Yep.
And which has actually worked out nicely. So for me personally, we tried to go from what my wife is actually a doctor. So I got into those when I was actually up in Stoke. Because she was at medical school, and I had my main house that I was living down here, but I was up there seeing her, and I was living in a student dig, so I was like, I can't be doing this. So I bought one for us, which she ended up renting up. She's crazy. She loves to rent out all of our rooms. So she'd rent out the rooms in this house if she could. And then I started buying properties local to the uni up there, because I was there, and then I built a team up there. So I don't actually pay a letting agents to handle them. I actually have a team of people there, have like plumbers, electricians, everything else. It keeps costs low. Yeah. And I trust them. They have keys. It's all sorted. So anything goes wrong, they're like that. And
if something does go wrong, does the tenant call you?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that? Is that okay?
So for me personally, like I said, I treat my tenants really well. And I always said to them, look, I'm not like other letting agencies. If something goes wrong, we'll fix it immediately. And you know what? We actually get referrals from other students every single year. We normally rent out our properties because students will refer other students. I've never heard that before. No, because we go out of our way to make sure that they're treated properly, as I would want to be treated. Yeah. And you know what? It's not hard to treat someone well. So we actually have live messages. So I say, look, unless it's an emergency, don't message us crazy o'clock on Sunday night. If the bulb needs changing, like we get crazy requests, like a G10 needs changing in the hallway, don't message me on a Saturday night, okay? But if there's something urgent, tell us, we'll get it done.
Yes.
We'll always respect you, but respect us. And if you're fair, we're fair.
Yeah.
And we'll always get done really quickly. We'll get everything done as fast as humanly possible. And you won't be sitting there with damp, mold, this, that, and the other. And that's it. And do you know what? Because of that, we actually get less complaints and less issues because they respect us for it.
Yeah.
So do you know what? Just sometimes not being an arsehole as a landlord,
treating
people well just goes a long way. And I do the same in business.
Yes.
Just treat everyone that you're working with. And if you're selling a service or product or anything, regardless of what industry it's in, care about your customer.
So just
best advice I can possibly give you.
And
you'll do well. Be a good person. It's not only be a good person. If you want to be profitable in business, be consumer centric. Yeah. If you care about the person you're selling to, you care about the product you're giving them, the value you're giving them, making sure they're happy, you will do well.
Yeah.
It's literally not that hard.
No, another bit of valuable advice. So obviously I love the property aspect of it. You've gone obviously business and property. Mm-hmm. If you started, obviously I'm using this as the example because the whole way through, but if you went back to zero, didn't have any businesses or any property, maybe you've got 20 or 30k, would you go out and go, right, I'm going to buy properties? Or would you go, actually, I'm going to launch businesses to then buy property?
Completely depends. If I had an idea in my head of what it was that I wanted to do, and like I said, I'd had the vision and everything else, it's hard for me to say that because I am now quite good at building businesses. So for 30k, I could build a very good business. So it's very different. If I was starting again, I didn't have that experience, I probably would diversify and secure myself with property first. Probably. If I knew how to buy it and everything else. If I'd been watching your YouTube channel, then I probably would have done. But it's horses for courses. It's very difficult to answer that question because it all depends.
Or maybe I'll rephrase it differently. A large part of buying property requires cash.
Yes.
So do you think people should focus more on the business, or should they go down property if they have more expertise or interest?
In my opinion, you and I probably know what I'm going to say. I think it's easier to make money in business than it is to make money in rentals. Mm-hmm. So my point being is if you hit off a business that goes really well, you can become a millionaire very quickly, right? You can't really do that with the HMOs and rentals. It's a slower process.
Yeah.
But that's if you're good at business. I've always been I'm quite gifted at businesses. That's what I'm good at. For me, if I wasn't so good at businesses, I would definitely go down the property route a lot more because I know it's a safer venture, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
Property here is a great investment.
Good asset to hold, isn't it?
Brilliant asset to hold.
Yeah.
And that's why I hold them.
Yeah.
The money I have in my properties right now, I could put into my businesses and I would make more money from them. But I want the security of that. And I want the passive income, which I knew that I was going to have.
Yes.
So, but for me, I would probably focus firstly on building a decent business that had good cash flow, and then I would re-divert that into property. If you have, for me, I told you earlier about if you had one big business that I focused on.
Yeah.
If I was going to try and fully optimize my wealth, what I would do is I would focus fully on one business and I would put a lot of my money into property as my safeguard, not a secondary business, and focus on getting that business as big as possible and make sure I'm secured with my properties. That's what I would do. But I do genuinely believe that for me, it would be easier to get a decent cash flow from a business to then invest in property. But I would always advise investing in property.
Yes, yeah.
And the more people that have that mindset, the better the property market is as well. So it's always a good thing
if
everyone invests in property, right?
Yeah.
So I like student lets. I know you didn't ask me that, but I personally like student lets purely for the fact that you can optimize your value per room.
Yes.
I mean, if I was going for more passive income, I would probably rent out on a longer term lease to a family.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do the work every year. My wife helps me with that as well. So I get more money from that.
Yeah.
I know kind of what I'm doing with that. Also, I then don't have the issues of people leaving, but not leaving when I need them to, because students are always happy to leave after a year.
Yeah.
Don't tend to get. So there's a lot of things, pros and cons. And once again, we said earlier about respecting people. People say, "Oh, students trash houses." Treat them well. Treat them with respect.
Yeah.
Actually, go up and check every now and then as well. Just don't leave it for a year.
Yeah.
Go in, pop your head in every 3 months, let them know they're coming. Obviously within the contract or whatever. And you know what? Touch wood. They're immaculate every year.
Yeah.
No damages, no nothing, because we treat them well.
Yeah, I think I saw in one of your previous videos that you'd gone in and it was more just really freshening it up before the new student year.
People, they don't trash it. If you're like polite and respectful to your tenants, 9 times out of 10 they will be polite and respectful back.
Yeah. No, well, I have a lot of respect for that business model because I think it's really good for cash flow. I can completely understand why you do it, especially with your business head in mind, because that does create a lot more cash than the odd buy-to-let, which is obviously a lot less cash, but it's perhaps slightly more passive. So Fun fact, going off the property thing, fun fact for anyone, you and I have grown up in the same area.
Yeah.
We actually went to the same secondary school, small world. Obviously, you've done incredibly well, as I've just mentioned. But in your personal opinion, do you think that success is something that someone is born with, or do you think it can be learnt along the way? Like having a successful business.
I think success predominantly comes down to mindset, number one. And whether that mindset, I think I could make someone successful that wasn't born with mindset of a successful person through very heavy mentoring.
Yeah.
However, I do think 9 times out of 10, success, like I said, success comes from a mindset and consistency. I was having a chat with obviously a friend in the background earlier saying that when you get knocked down, obviously I've had big hits. If you don't have that mental capacity to be able to pick yourself back up and get back on the bandwagon, and you don't get productive again, it's over. Life will hit you, no matter who you are, no matter what position you're in. I know we talked about Elon Musk earlier.
Yeah.
He nearly bankrupted himself with his rockets. He launched his third one. I'm using him at the moment because he's obviously quite popular at the moment. The guy's super successful, and even some of that level of success still has knocks and whatever else. And if you don't get back up and you don't have that mental drive and fortitude, you won't be successful. So for me, if you don't have that, you don't necessarily have to be super bright. You can teach someone how to build a business. You can teach someone how to run a business. Mm-hmm. You can't teach someone how to get hit and stand back up again.
Yeah.
Because until someone gets hit and gets knocked down,
they don't know how to pick themselves up.
I can't teach you that. That's to come from you. So from my opinion, success comes from people that are able to do that, get knocked down time and time again, get back up, because everyone that knows that's successful has had massive knocks, gone bankrupt, lost it all, come back again. And if you can't come back again, then you can't be successful by definition. So I think you're more born with it than not, to be honest. But I think you can teach people how to learn how to make money, how to be successful. You can teach someone how to do real estate. You can do a very good job. But once again, it's like, how successful are we talking? I think you can make a very comfortable living and teach someone how to do that. You can teach someone, and property is obviously a fantastic way to do it. That's why I've always advocated property and always think it's a great tool.
Do you think that you're addicted to success and progressing?
Not addicted to success. I had a bit of a deep thought chat with myself recently. I am not addicted to money. I'm not addicted to materialistic goals. And you just touched on it. I've realised I'm addicted to progression. If you put me in the army, I would become general. If you put me in any business or whatever the goal was, like, that's why I'm obsessed with the gym. I realised it wasn't about being big. It was about the progression of my physique. I don't ever want to go and lift a certain weight. I just want my weight to go up. And if it's going, I'm addicted to seeing things move forward, regardless of what it is. And I realise it's got nothing to do with the actual thing that I'm trying to build. It was just seeing it move.
Just about the process.
So you could take me away from business and put me into just purely fitness, and I'd be happy as long as I can see progression in whatever that was. That's what I'm addicted to.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a really good mindset to have, because also then you can learn and enjoy that process. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if you're continuously thinking about just the end goal, your life would just probably go, wouldn't it? And then you'd get to the end and you'd be like, oh, was this what it was all for? So
you could give me £1 billion and nothing would happen. Like if you said, right, you have £1 billion, everything has to stop, I'd be depressed. There's nothing to get out of bed for. That's me. I'm massively addicted to progression.
And what are your plans there for 2021? You got anything big in the pipeline?
So I basically want to become known more I want to have a bit more of an impact in the service world. I want to increase my awareness and exposure of myself, because like you said, I've been working in the shadows quite a lot up until now. And I want to start helping people navigate this new world, because what the pandemic has done is pushed the digital space about 10 years ahead, right? So cash is pretty much gone. People working from offices is dying out. I think there's going to be a lot of cultural shifts that aren't going to go back to normal, whether you like it or not. I might be wrong, but I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's come from the pandemic that's not going to shift.
I agree.
And we were on the trajectory of going digital and things moving that way, and people home working and moving online. So obviously I deal with a lot of PTs and are moving online as an example. And to be honest, for one, I know there's a lot of money to be made in that business of consulting those people. And two, I want to actually aid people and build businesses, even if I'm not doing it myself, build a business of actually helping people do that. Same way, obviously, you like helping people win properties and doing well. And I got a hell of a lot of fulfillment out of people that turn around and said to me, Elliot, when I first started working with you, I was making £600 a month and I was in my overdraft. And then now I'm earning 8-10 grand a month in 4 or 5 months' time. Now, this is not everyone does this, but a fair few of my clients, some of them are gone from £0 to £2,000 a month. I've made a living out of it from home. And they're so overwhelmingly happy and just so grateful. I've never had that in business before. I've
changed their life.
I've changed their life. I've done a lot of work for big companies. I've worked for Harrods, Watson, and all these big names. And they're grateful when I make them more money, but they're already doing millions a year. It's not quite the same. You're taking someone that's on the breadline and teaching them a skill. And I was like, well, this is actually quite revolutionary to me. It's quite fulfilling. And I was like, well, I want to do a bit more of that. So for my 2021, if I can do more of that and get more awareness out there and help people, then that's pretty much what I want to do this year.
And goes back to enjoy what you do.
Yeah, and also keep sane myself.
Yeah.
It's not easy for anyone right now. Anyone that looks at guys like us that will probably say, well, these guys are super motivated. I'm not motivated every day. And especially at the moment, it's very hard to be motivated. I'm just very disciplined. I don't wake up every day jumping out of bed. I just get out of bed because I'm disciplined and I work. And that's what you said about mindset earlier. I will do what has to be done. There's non-negotiables. I have to do my work. I have to do this. And I know that I'll get through it because of that. But not everyone, people are like, how are you so motivated? I'm not.
No,
I'm just driven.
Yeah. Everyone wakes up and has a bad day.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And especially at the moment, there's a lot of successful people struggling, but they just get on with it. And you need to know that you're not alone. You're not the only person struggling. And all the excuses you're making are not going to get you anywhere near your goal. Solutions are greater than excuses. Always. So
very good bit to end on. This has honestly been a really, really good interview. Great interview.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate all your advice. I know everyone else will. If they want to follow you, message you, connect with you, where and how can they do that?
Well, you can search me on YouTube, because obviously I know you're predominantly based on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just put in Elliot Wise, I should come up. I think my Instagram handle is Wise Elliot. So but reach out to me if you've got any questions on business. Like I said, I'm not a massive property expert, but I've got a bit of experience in that. I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. Like I say, I dabble in it. But if you've got any advice on marketing, you've got any business questions, anything like that, drop me a message. I'm more than happy to try and help. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming over.
Thank you for your time. Massively appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers, Elliot.